Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to build Lana. And this is a video that quite a few of my subscribers, I guess, have been asking me to create. I'm not quite sure why, but because I always felt that Lana was a very easy character to build. But hey, you know, if so many people are curious about how to build Lana, I'll talk about it. So, before I begin, let's talk about Lana's soldier bonds. And Lana has one of the most interesting soldier bonds. She does 40% to attack, 40% to magic defense, 10% to hit points, and then 10% to defense. So what this really means is her soldiers do incredibly high damage, and they can absorb magic attacks very well. But other than that, they have next to no survivability. So, in many ways, Lana is like the penultimate glass cannon character in this game. She hits ridiculously hard, and she's also very easy to kill. In addition to that, her talent, Arcane Explosion, it increases the magic damage that is dealt. In addition, it also increases her range by 1 when she's using her skills. So, for example, this means Dark Reaper would have 3 range, Freeze Strike would have 3 range, her AoE attack Black Hole would have 4 range, and so on. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting talent, and there's 2 things I should mention about it. First, the fact that it increases magic damage, this also affects her soldiers that do magic damage. So, Sorceress units would get an increase in magic damage, so wizards would also get an increase in magic damage. So would witches and basically any unit that does magic damage would get an increase in the damage that they deal. In fact, this is the only talent among all the mages in the game that are currently out that can increase the damage of soldiers. So this is why Lana is really the hardest hitting mage in the game. There are other mages whose soldiers also get 40% attack increase. But there is no other mage in the game whose talent affects the soldiers as well as the character themselves. So that's why Lana is incredibly powerful at killing off targets with single target attacks. Now, while I said this, you do need to note that this range increase when casting skills only applies to Lana herself. So what that means is her soldiers have 2 range. If you attack at 3 range with one of her skills, these soldiers will not participate in the fight. So if you're attacking at 3 range, all those sorceress units or wizard units or whatever unit you have on her will not attack, and that will dramatically reduce the amount of damage she does. So in some ways, she's actually a terrible character for auto battle. Because when you auto battle, the AI likes to attack at maximum range, so it always attacks at 3 range with Lana, which prevents her soldiers from participating in any fight, so that she can't one-shot targets. But if you attack at 2 range, use a skill while you're doing that, she will basically one-shot every single time she attacks. So that's why Lana is one of the hardest hitting mages in the game. Now, with her talent covered and her soldiers briefly mentioned, or her soldier bonds anyways, let's talk about her classes. So, you can see that with Lana, let me quickly bring up the class mastery. Okay, she actually has a summoner class, but it's important to note that the summoner class does not give her any intelligence increase. So in many ways, I actually don't recommend you get her summoner class at all, because it's just not worth using the runestone for it. If you were to get a summoner class, do it on Bozo. Don't bother doing it on Lana. Now, with that said, you can see that my Lana only has Mage, Archmage, and Dark Princess unlocked. I do not have Sage or Martyr yet. I want them, that's why I have 2 runestones, but I'm currently saving up the materials so I can get both of these upgrades in one go. For her final class, you want her to stay as Dark Princess. The reason for that is that the Martyr class has less intelligence than the Dark Princess class does. So for a character like Lana, you want to maximize her intelligence to maximize her damage. That's why even if you unlock the Saint and Martyr class, you want to make her the Dark Princess at the very end. It's important to note though that going for Saint and Martyr, you generally do it because you want Heaven's Sanction, a second AoE attack for Lana, so that she would have two, right? Heaven's Sanction for one AoE attack, and then Black Hole for her second AoE attack. So an AoE Lana would be very, very powerful for PvP. But if you're just doing PvE content, you can see, I've cleared all the dragons, I've cleared all the any keys that I want, I'm clearing SS Ultimate Trials, and my Lana does not have Saint or Martyr unlocked yet. So this is in many ways very much an optional class. I will say I definitely want Heaven's Sanction for PvP, but if you don't PvP at all, you do not need to get her Saint or Martyr class. Simply because the combination of her intelligence and her talent gives her enough intelligence to one-shot targets anyways. What is there to mention? So, Lana is actually both the dark part of the dark faction as well as the princess faction. If you were to build a PvP Lana in general, you do it with the princess faction because of Luna's faction buff adding more AoE damage. But if you have her as the dark faction, so you would have Bozil and Lana, that's a good combination too. In fact, that's the combination I used. You should be aware though that 2 AoE strikes is generally not enough to kill off enemies. You generally need 3. So yeah, that's something to be aware of. If you need to hit 3 AoEs in one turn pretty much to kill off enemies. Alright, so I've talked about her classes where basically you just go down Mage, Archmage, and Dark Princess. Pick up Saint and Martyr later on, but they're not necessary. If you were to go down Mage, Archmage, and Dark Princess, her best skill combination is what I have right now, which is Dark Reaper for a single target strike, Freeze Strike for another single target strike, which does additional damage to Lancers. Very, very useful, because Lancers are one of the most common enemies you face. And if Lana is able to get rid of Lancers, right, Leon can attack the targets after Lana kills them off. And then Black Hole for the third attack, because sometimes she's 4 tiles away from the enemy, so she can hit them with a Black Hole to just apply debuffs. There is the occasional use of Blizzard. For example, I think I used Blizzard to clear certain Ice Dragons at low level because of the mobility decrease that the Blizzard applies. And also, Magic Defense Intimidate has a use too, because it decreases the magic defense of all enemies within 3 blocks by 20%. So if you have Magic Defense Intimidate, after that, any other magic attack would do additional damage. Generally, that's again for Ice Dragon, because you would replace the Black Hole skill with Magic Defense Intimidate, so that Bozil would do more damage after Lana attacks. So, that pretty much covers Lana's skills. And then finally, you would want Black Hole and Heaven's Sanction for PvP. And then your third skill would usually be Freeze Strike to hit enemy Lancers. So, with that said, let's talk about Lana's soldiers. Okay? And her soldiers are actually very easy. Just use witches. Or just use sorceresses. That sums it up. Sorceresses is from the training ground, not too hard to unlock, and they are by far her best unit. Because when the soldier hit points is 100%, attack and magic defense are both increased. So they do more damage. Yeah, basically that sums it up. They're the hardest hitting magic attacker that she has access to. And in addition, the magic defense increase means that they give her a good survivability against the Ice Dragon. There's no point in using wizards when you can use sorceresses for her, right? Hellfire Archers, not much use to her. Like, none of the other units have this combination of extra damage and survivability that sorceresses offer. So there's literally no other unit that you really want to use on Lana. She's a glass cannon, and sorceresses fit that role perfectly. So, other than that, we've talked about her classes, we've talked about her skills. I guess the last thing to mention is her equipment. So, Lana is very simple to build, in my opinion anyways. You really just want to stack as much intelligence on her because she's one of your range damage dealers. So if you have SR equipment, not SSR yet, it's very straightforward. For SR equipment, you would want what was it called? I'm just thinking. Sage's Staff. Because the Sage's Staff gives plus int percentage and a good amount of intelligence. For her armor, it would be plus hit points. So Green Leaf Coat would be a good one, right? Some hit points would give her a bit more survivability, which is better than nothing at all. You don't have to use Green Leaf Coat. There's also the Alchemy Robe, I think, which gives you a chance to reduce the enemy damage when you're attacked. So you can choose either one. Hit points would give her more survivability that way. Alchemy Robe would reduce enemy damage, which would give her more survivability as well. Either one works. For her helmet, I still have her SR helm, which is Warlock's Hood. Warlock's Hood, after you take action, has a 50% chance to decrease the defense, the magic defense of one enemy within 3 blocks by 30%. It lasts 1 turn. Basically, it just helps when you have 2 mages, you know. If she attacks first, she has a chance to reduce the magic defense of another enemy that's alive within 3 blocks of her. And then your other mage could attack that enemy to do additional damage. So that's why I use Warlock's Hood. And then her last item for SR level would be the one that gives plus intelligence, which is Truth Pendant. So that's pretty much it. My current equipment for her is still focused on increasing her intelligence as much as possible. So for weapons, she has a Blue Moon, plus 10% int. For her accessories, she has Holy Ring, because it gives plus int percentage, and grants immunity to silence, which is a nice effect to have for PvP right now. Because, well, people who use Bozal in PvP normally give him AoE attacks with the Seal ability, which has a 50% chance to silence enemy active skills. So by having the Holy Ring, she's immune to silence, so that she can definitely use her attack skills, which is very important for Lana. Another useful, if you don't have a Holy Ring and you want to do PvP, you can actually, believe it or not, give her a Crystal Ball. You know, because that also gives immunity to effects that silence active skills. Crystal Ball, it does increase hit points and intelligence, so it gives her a bit more survivability and an intelligence boost. Yes, she no longer gets, intelligence plus 10% or whatever, but in many ways, having immunity to silence for PvP is more important than getting, let's say, 10% intelligence. Because if she can't even use her attack skills, Lana won't be doing enough damage to one-shot targets. So, just an interesting point that I thought I should mention. And then, yeah, so Holy Ring, Blue Moon, I'm still using Warlock's Hood, and I have a level 50 Death's Robe, but that's actually not a great item for her, because, it doesn't hurt, but I really just have this one because I actually got 4 Death's Robes. In fact, I think I got 6 of them. I dismantled 2 after this. But yes, I got 4 Death's Robes, so I made one level 50, and I just gave it to her because it's a level 50 SSR, so why not? But it's definitely not her best armor. So, with that said, this is my current Lana, right? She had the level 50 Blue Moon, level 40 Holy Ring. I do not have her second class unlocked, and she's been able to one-shot basically every target I want her to one-shot. So that says it all. She just hits that hard, as long as you attack from 2 range with sorceress units. So, we've talked about her classes, Let's talk about her optimal equipment at this point. And as always, I'm going to bring up the Google spreadsheet for SSR equipment. So, here we are. So, Lana's final equipment is actually pretty interesting, and I'll mention this briefly. But right now, for her current in the current stage, her best weapon would really be the Red Moon, because the Red Moon gives plus 10% int plus 5% hit points. If you don't have a Red Moon, use the Blue Moon, just like me. It gives plus 10% hit points and plus 5% magic defense. You know, Red Moon is slightly better than Blue Moon because hit points gives her a bit more toughness against melee attacks, whereas magic defense is only against ranged attacks, magic attacks. But if you have a level 50 Blue Moon, you don't need to rush to get a level 50 Red Moon. That pretty much sums it up. Yeah. So, best current weapon is Red Moon for Lana. If you don't have a Red Moon, you can use a Blue Moon, and you don't need to upgrade to a Red Moon anytime soon. There's no rush to upgrade to it. So, but yes, Red Moon or Blue Moon. Those are Lana's current equipments. SSR armor. There's actually 2 armors that she can use. Baldur's White Robe is a decent one for her, right? Because when attacked by a melee attack, 20% of your units has no melee punishment. So that helps when she gets melee attacked. You do more damage to the enemy. That's considered one of the better PvP armors for her, just like for Bozo, really. But if you don't have a Baldur's White Robe at level 50, a Tenyo's Robe would be great for her too, because it gives plus 10% hit points, which gives her more survivability. And when attacked, there's a 30% chance to dispel 1 buff and add 1 debuff to the enemy before battle. Very useful effect, If it kicks in, for example, and removes, let's say, the plus 20% attack buff that a faction buff provides, suddenly Lana has a much higher possibility to survive the attack from the enemy. So it's a great armor for mages in general, Tenyo's Robe. But if you don't have it, you can use Death's Robe like I am using right now. You can use Baldur's White Robe if you have a level 51. Overall, generally people say at the end game for PvP, Baldur's White Robe is better than Tenyo's Robe. And that's simply because at end game stages, there's absolutely no chance of Lana being able to avoid being one-shot. In that case, even Tenyo's Robe's 10% hit points won't let her survive anyways. So you might as well do more damage to the enemy before dying, which is what Baldur's White Robe does. So, that talks about the best weapon, the best armor for her. And then... Oh, actually, I should mention something right now. On the Chinese server, characters are now getting hero-exclusive equipment. And Lana gets an exclusive equipment that debuffs enemies before the battle begins. That's actually her ultimate best armor. And it's actually, if you use Lana, that's the armor you should absolutely get for her. It's by far the best armor. So if you get that armor, her best weapon actually changes. Because she can now apply a debuff to enemies before she attacks, her best weapon changes from Red Moon to Astaroth. Because the Astaroth, when entering battle, you get plus 15% intelligence against enemies with debuffs. And there's also a 30% chance to stun enemies if you do a single target attack on them. So 15% additional damage against enemies with debuffs, that right there means you're getting 5% more intelligence than, let's say, Red Moon or Blue Moon would offer. So that's why, with her hero exclusive armor, you would want to use Astaroth instead of Red Moon or Blue Moon. Alright, so I've mentioned that. Let's talk about her helmets. Helmet is pretty straightforward for her, right? Tenyo's headdress is a great one because it gives, again, as usual, plus 10% hit points, more survivability. And after action, there's a 100% chance to grant a random thumb buff to an enemy within 2 blocks. So it's always nice to have. But it's actually not considered her best helmet. It's a nice one for her, but it's not the best one. Because she's your damage dealer, for example, you would want to potentially want one of these two, which is Charon or Soul Stealer headdress. Charon would apply a 15% damage received debuff on the enemy within 3 blocks of her. So that's kind of like Warlock's Hood, an upgraded Warlock's Hood, if you will, right? Warlock's Hood would apply a magic defense reduction. Charon would increase the damage that a character takes, which makes Charon better, because that would apply to both melee attacks as well as magic attacks. And so Charon's a great one for her, and Soul Stealer Headdress is probably her best helmet for PvP purposes. The reason for that is because Soul Stealer Headdress, after taking action, you have a 50% chance to deactivate the active skill of one enemy within 3 blocks. Right? So it's literally a silence effect on the enemy. If you silence, let's say, the enemy healer or the enemy mage, suddenly they can't attack you, and that pretty much wins you the match, doesn't it, in PvP? Now, in PvE though, silencing enemies is really not as important, so it would be a nice to have, but it's not required, if you will. So that makes it 3 possible SSR helmets that you can use. Tenyo's Headdress, if you want to buff an enemy randomly after her action. It's not as great because, generally speaking, Lana is your ranged attacker, so she's one of the first ones to move up and attack. If she's moving up and attacking, it's hard to have an ally within 2 blocks of her. So that's the pro and the con of Tenyo's Headdress. So that's why, because it's sometimes very hard to apply this effect, you're better off with Charon or Soul Stealer Headdress. In terms of priority, I would say the best one is definitely Soul Stealer Headdress, then Charon, then Tenyo's Headdress. Alright, so we've talked about all the helmets you can use, and now let's talk about the final part, which is the accessories. In terms of accessories, you just want the priority, of course, is to get any accessory that increases your intelligence, so you can one-shot targets. But once you have that, you would have to pick one of the ones for her to use. And my suggestion for the current stage is Holy Ring, the one that I'm currently using. Simply because it gives plus int and it gives the immunity to silence effect. There's so many effects that apply silence that it's very important for her to have that. However, people have mentioned that Vidar's Rose is also an amazing accessory for her, because what it does is when actively dealing damage, you have a 50% chance to dispel 1 buff from the enemy. So, because this applies to AoE attacks too, right? So it's also a very, very strong PvP accessory for her. Because in PvP, you'll probably have Heaven Sanction and Black Robe. Heaven Sanction and Black Hole. So with 2 AoEs that apply... with 2 AoEs, you get that the Vidar's Rose has a very high chance to dispel a buff from an enemy as a result. But yeah, these 2, definitely her best accessories. Whether you go with Vidar's Rose or Holy Ring would depend on how you play your Lana. If you know your Lana is likely to get hit by enemy AoE attacks and so on, then you might want Holy Ring. Otherwise though, Vidar's Rose is a better option. Okay, so that's basically everything I wanted to say about Lana. Her equipment, her soldiers, which is just 1 unit, sorceress, and her classes, which is go up for Dark Princess first, and then if you want to use her for PvP, get the Martyr class. There is one thing I missed, which is her best enchant. And Lana's enchant, I'm currently using Clocks, I think that was. Yeah, I'm currently using Clocks and Magic mixed together. The reason for that is because I'm trying to transition her to use Magic. I just haven't done the enchants yet, but I'm going to make my Lana use Magic. The reason for that is Magic increases her skill damage even further. Regular skills, single target skills, would do 10% more damage, and then AoE skills would get an additional 5% on top of that. So AoE skills would be doing 15% additional damage. Because she has 2 AoE attacks for PvP purposes, which would be Black Hole and Heaven Sanction, that would mean the magic would really, really help in that sense. And more importantly, with 2 AoE attacks, you really do not need clocks at that point. In general, if you're using AoE attacks in PvP, you're expecting to kill the enemy with AoEs. So it's highly unlikely you'll need one character to do 3 AoE attacks in a row to win. Which is why for Lana, her best enchant is actually magics rather than clocks. Right? Bozal is definitely clocks, because in the case of Bozal, he's very likely to use skills like sleep. So if you're using skills like sleep, you would really want clocks to activate. But in the case of Lana, you would really want more AoE damage, which is magic. Alright, so that's literally everything I want to say about Lana. You can, just an interesting note, you can see that my Lana has over 5,000 power, and she doesn't even have her second, class mastery done yet. So she just has a lot of combat potential. Like if I compare that to Leon with double class mastery, with basically maxed out equipment except for the horror helm, he's only at 5186. But Lana, her holy ring is still only level 40, and despite that, she's almost identical to Leon in power. So it just really just shows how powerful Lana is. Alright, that's everything I wanted to say. I hope you found this video useful. And if there's anything I missed, please do mention it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Nitro out.